Welcome to the Inspired Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Diamond Arnold, and I'm here inviting our CEO, Chris Wollerman, who is also co-founder of Inspire Software. And thanks for coming back to join us, Chris.
Always happy to be here. Good to see you,
So,
Jason.
so just to set some context for the audience, we've been going through an executive series. It's a six-part series, and what we've tried to focus on is helping organizations, whether it's small business to mid-sized business, set their corporate strategy and then be able to visualize and communicate that corporate strategy, turn it into action and execute that strategy. And one of the things that we find, and we've discovered not only in the research, but working with our clients in our own research, is that executive leaders have a tendency to set the strategy and then they want a scoreboard. They want a dashboard. Look at the numbers. What's the revenue? Where are the gaps? How much are the cost savings? When we set up the OKRs, how many of us are in the green, the red, the yellow on these team OKRs or department OKRs? And the quantitative numbers related to that are very important. But what we emphasize at Inspire that there's also another element behind the quantitative numbers. Why are the numbers what they are? And there's this sort of hidden, unexplored data element that often is overlooked at the executive level. And we call it qualitative data, or we call it warm data. Talk to us about, if you're an executive, why is it so important to look at those numbers and look at the quantitative data, but understand what's underneath that quantitative data with the qualitative data that's being created either intentionally or unintentionally by your organization?
Yeah, so I kind of look at it, it's actually three areas, right? The first one is as people are putting progress in, which they're usually doing with numbers, right? And green, yellow, red. So they're saying, okay, I moved the needle from X to Y this week by doing something. But we asked them to put in a clarifying status, like what did you do to make that change or make that improvement? And so that's a good piece of qualitative information that, and even if they didn't move the needle, what happened? I did these activities, and I still have to wait a few more weeks before we expect to see that outcome, for example. It just really helps explain what the numbers are saying. So if they're in the red, you're looking at narratives and numeric measurement around the culture.
Those are great insights, and it made me think. You mentioned a couple things in there that I want to explore a little bit further with you. A lot of people might not know how to necessarily create that kind of data, or they might not have systems set up like, okay, you mentioned one-to-ones, or we have team meetings, but we're not really capturing that kind of data in the team meetings. You mentioned something that I'd like to ask you about, and specifically how AI can support this. You mentioned something about check-ins. And so we know on the Inspire platform, you have an OKR. It could be a team OKR, an individual OKR, department OKR. You have the ability to check in on that OKR and leave a status update.
So in the case of Inspire, the function check-in is a check-in on progress on your objective or even your role, right? So if a lot of times people have a lot of responsibilities in their role that aren't necessarily set up as goals or OKRs. So you can also check in and say, here's what's going on with my other part of the picture. But the most important part of the process is really, as they update numbers or don't update numbers, it's that status narrative of what's going on with this thing we're talking about, this thing that we're checking in on. So if it's an objective and we're finishing off the week, you can talk about some of your activities. One of the nice things that I like about our Inspire app is as you plan tasks, you check those off and it automatically prompts you to say, do you want to do an auto check-in which then brings up the completed this task, and you can elaborate on that. So that's one way to kind of help people again understand what's going on. And then if you're not completing the task or you're not moving the needle, like we talked about a little bit earlier, still just saying, here's why I'm stuck, or here's why I'm waiting for this progress to happen. And just that little bit of extra insight really helps people understand where we're at and are we going to hit this target on time or those kind of things.
What's either working, what progress is being made, or what challenges are being discovered. That's sort of some of the golden insight into, okay, why is the number what it is, whether it's in the green, red, or yellow, or whatever format you're using to look at that dashboard. So you have that check-in, and that's one way to create data. One of the other ways, and this has been interesting because I'd like to hear your perspective on what's changed with AI, is you have some team goals or department goals, and people get together on those. And traditionally, in the days where we all be in a room together, you would have a note taker and they'd be taking notes, and you'd talk about who has what tasks. Talk about what's changed in today's team meeting, especially using AI, and why is it important to have disciplined team meetings that would create some of this qualitative data that explains where some of those team and department OKRs are?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a good book by Patrick Lencioni about death by meeting and really getting fewer meetings but better quality is one of the keys. And I've looked back at my career and I've been in so many meetings, over the years, like so many other people. And it's rare to find like really good note takers for one, and then a structured meeting where you're going over the action items at the end and everybody's got clear ownership and due dates. And then at the beginning of the next meeting, if it's on a cadence, like a weekly team OKR meeting, did you actually follow through on those, having some accountability to those previous action items? That is pretty rare. And where AI is helping now is you no longer need the note taker. You've got a note taker. Sometimes you see three or four of them on a recorded
Okay.
meeting, all popping in for everybody's like assistant. Um, I kind of think of the movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, where he had his assistant come sit in on the class to take notes.
That's right.
So now you've got the AI doing a great job of interpreting, summarize, pull the action items, push them into our Inspire meeting agendas or one-on-one agendas. We've got a few different places like that really helps. And then using like daily briefing agents that pull also that information in. It's here's what you went through today in your 6 meetings. Here are all the action items that you have ownership of. Close the day out on a high note. There's so much that AI is doing to take just the meeting information and make it actionable and bring more accountability back. And that's really when we're talking OKRs and strategy execution, that's what it's all about. It's like you can plan, and I think we talked in a previous podcast about planning, which is a very important first step. But it all comes down to, did you actually do the task or activity? And if not, what happened? Were you stuck? You still need some help or coaching or something. So that's where the rubber hits the road, is when the task gets done or somebody's coming in to help the task get done.
I would even say, even when the task is done, what did you learn from it? Either, what challenge did you face, what held you back, or what did you learn from what went well? Like, what could others learn from, or what could we learn as an organization or a team or department? What could we learn from? And having that as part of the team conversation when you do a discipline check-in is really important, because then we have teams that are using Inspire, and they will put those notes into their notes page on the team on a team OKR. And at the end of a quarter, when you do an after action review of that quarter to see how everything went, you have a running narrative on the 10 to 12 meetings that you had during the quarter, and you can have AI sort of summarize what were the key learnings from this quarter, what were the key discussions, what were the key challenges, what went well, and it's all right there for you to access, and that's that qualitative data that then explains and the speed of change. And we're trying to keep things, especially at the executive level. Why are one-to-ones, having disciplined one-to-one meetings between a manager or a people leader and the individuals on their team, why is that so important, and how is AI helping in those one-to-one meetings now?
Yeah, it's really the opportunity for the manager and the employee to connect where the employee needs the most direction or support or combination of that. And it's kind of interesting when I used to in my previous company say we're going to have everybody do one-on-ones at least bi-weekly, and I would get pushback. People would say, well, I see my employees every day. We're in all kinds of meetings and we're doing activities together, and why do I need this one-on-one? And my answer is it's such a different meeting, and if you approach it in a way where situation, now you're really able to address something that you can't do in a team meeting, because a team meeting is a huge dynamic of various personalities with different agendas and things that are not going to get to that heart of what a one-on-one is really about, which is helping the employee succeed, number one, grow and develop, coach them on progress where they're feeling challenged, and then just building that relationship. And the thing that, like, I had three one-on-ones today. Two of them we didn't even bring up our application like we normally do. So it's another good idea to not get in this mode of you're always just kind of going through the motions of this agenda and these items and same OKRs every week or every 2 weeks. Step back, and in both of those, my first two meetings today, we just had face to face on the Teams meeting, and we're really able to talk through. Like, the first person I was working with was feeling kind of burnt out, and just talk through that, let them talk, look at the body language, understand, build that relationship.
I want to go into this last part because within whether it's a team meeting, Chris, but specifically to one-to-one meetings, you talked about AI can help create better conversations because they know a person's, let's say, disposition or their personality assessment. If you're using a leadership language that either you've created in your organization or you've bought a third party leadership language from a book that you've read or a course that you've gone through, and you want that to be your leadership language, that shows up in the conversations. And I want to talk about that specifically because that's the conversations that happen in those meetings are so important, understanding the numbers, what they are. We often reference out John Doerr's book, and then he touches base in the second part of the book on what he refers to as CFRs: conversations, feedback, and recognition. A lot of what we're talking about in today's podcast is found in those conversations, and how you give feedback to employees, how you give feedback to your team, and then how you recognize your employees and team members. Talk about how AI has influenced increasing the quality of conversations, feedback, and recognition, especially in something like the Inspire platform.
Sure. So the preparation, we have several prompts, and we have like kind of a daily theme. So at the beginning of the week, you're able to come in, and right there on your homepage, it's like, happy Monday, let's plan your week out, and give you some tools to do that. And then as you get into the next day, maybe you're planning for your team meetings or prepping for the one-on-one. So one of those prompts is prep for one-on-one, whether it's with your manager leading up, or with your direct reports if you're a leader. And through that process, and what we built behind the scenes in the prompt is a pretty robust conversation with the AI, knowing the personality type of your direct report, if you're a leader, and looking at what they put in as their talking points, all of the data that you would, as a leader, if you've got five or more direct reports, it's really hard to know everything that's going on with every objective they have, plus their role, plus the things you're responsible for. So AI can gather all of these things. And if you have them set it up by priority, then it's like, look at these top priority things first. How are we progressing? And then are there other areas that are still important that we're behind on? It's able to really bring a lot of insight to that prep for the one-on-one. And so then as you go into that, and you might even, like if the one-on-one's tomorrow, there might be some things you can do in the meantime to work with that person to either repair a few things or, do whatever you need to do.
What's a recommendation to an executive leader that is looking to leverage AI but is just kind of getting started? What's your recommendation? Like, where do they start? Where do they go? How do you keep this from being overwhelming to them?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you say AI in general, that can mean a lot of things. I think with context of today's conversation, it's really about starting, you got to lead by example, right? You've got to, with your own team members, set up those one-on-ones, set up using some tools and using some AI to really help you prepare for those. And then getting the standard set throughout the organization. You're showing that this is working, you're seeing the value, and then you're explaining what's in it for me to all levels of the organization. So it's not just a mandate, because that never works or rarely works. And then you clarify and you help them understand the value and what's in it for them and measure that it's actually happening. And the standards got to be, if you're not holding them at all today, I wouldn't say we're going to start doing these weekly because people are going to freak out that
Yeah.
that's too much. But one thing I would like to say about one-on-ones is a lot of times they prevent other meetings that sometimes need to happen that people are putting together on the fly because they don't have the statuses and the information that they need, where they could have, with a good quality one-on-one, you can actually prevent other meetings. So figure out, what your current organization is. Start relatively light if you're not doing one-on-ones today. If you are doing one-on-ones today, then maybe think about increasing the frequency and the structure to make sure that they're happening, they're being measured, and then you can kind of see, you'll see who's doing them, and then you can compare that with your engagement data and your pulse survey data to see, are the people that are having these regular weekly or biweekly one-on-ones, are they seeing better results on uh, improved relationships with their managers, or improved satisfaction and overall engagement or motivation? It's a lot of things you can be looking at to see, are these one-on-ones working, and use that to go forward. And I could say, you're always going to get pushback from some portion of people that think, I've led it a different way in my past career, and that's worked for me. I don't need this new thing. And helping them understand that this is the culture of our company, that we're trying to build a more robust and leadership culture with a common language. And all you need to do is a 15-minute meeting every 2 weeks, and that should save you time in other areas. So that's what I would recommend. Set a standard, hold people accountable to that standard, but you got to have change management to help them understand why it's important. Can't just be a mandate. It's got to be led, taught, and observed and refined.
Well, I appreciate your insights, Chris, on this episode. There's so much wealth of knowledge. One of the things I appreciate about you, and I'm not just saying, it's like you have years of experience, maybe approaching or a little over 30 years of experience running two different companies, but working with other companies, helping them set strategy, helping them create good OKRs, getting it into a performance process, and then now even helping get AI infrastructure set up in organizations. So I just wanted to encourage all of our listeners, if they wanted to reach out to us and either speak to you specifically or our team, we have a team supporting Chris and all of our clients on these different things. If you're looking for help setting up strategy or looking for ways to have AI help you create more effective strategies, if you're interested in OKRs or linking that to a continuous performance platform, or even looking just to ask some questions about how You can improve your organization with either a leadership language or AI. Please feel free to reach out to us. You don't have to necessarily request a demo. We're happy to do demos, but we have a consulting arm that helps reach out and have conversations with you. We have coaching in terms of leadership, strategy, performance coaching. Please feel free to reach out to us at Inspire Software.
All right. Thank you. Glad to be here.